Today we're filming on a Goodwill lens. It's far away. It's in my bathroom. I can barely see the screen. Does it look sharp? Look good? So PCI sound cards, they're often shunned by the retro community, but I say if it sounds good and it can play your old DOS games, how bad can it really be? I mean, the card we're looking at today, the manual says it has VirtualFM technology that actually enhances games. I mean, that sounds kind of sick, right? I wonder what that sounds like. I mean, that's just one game. It can't be all that bad. Let's talk about this. This is the Trident 4DWave DX, a budget integrated sound chip released around 1998 or so. In addition to being a PCI add-on card like the one we see here, it was also integrated into motherboards and laptops to provide an all-in-one solution. It falls in that awkward transitionary period, where legacy Sound Blaster support was being phased out to more fully support DirectX and Windows gaming, but chipmakers were still making half-caboosed attempts to include it in some capacity. In some ways, this Trident card is no different, but it certainly has its share of weirdness compared to many other generic PCI chipsets of the time. At first glance, the oddest thing about it is that it's made by Trident Microsystems, a company who mainly produced video chipsets. In their 25 years of existence, this appears to be the only sound device they ever produced. In addition to the 3D sound baloney included on every PCI sound card of this time period, you're promised some neat sounding legacy features. You get a 64 voice WaveTable, Sound Blaster 16 compatibility, and the aforementioned VirtualFM thing that enhances OPL 2 and 3 games by converting them to play with WaveTable instruments. So how well does this all work? Only one way to find out. So first things first, I installed the Trident into my computer, and then when that didn't work, I installed the Trident 4DWave into my slot 1 rig instead. And I was off to the races, kind of. Right off the bat, it should be noted there are quite a few different driver variations floating around the internet for this card. I'm using the Shark multimedia package for the Predator 3D branded card that I have to hopefully ensure it works as it should. Interestingly, not all of the driver packages sound the same, even if they're compatible with the same card, as many of them are bundled with different default WaveTable sample libraries. Some of the earlier versions allow you to load your own sound fonts as well, a feature that is removed in most of the later driver packages for some reason. So if you use one of the drivers with an installer package, everything appears to install pretty smoothly here on my Windows 98 system. The drivers install themselves, all the initialization programs are automatically added to your auto exec, and you even get sound inside of Windows without needing a restart. However, if you run a vintage PC YouTube channel, the card then casts a level 99 curse spell on you and your computer. So, as it turns out, this card is very dependent on the motherboard you're using and how it handles the PCI bus. For legacy features of this card to work properly, it needs to be connected to the PCI bus 0. If another integrated device is tied to that bus or is sharing it, you will have conflicts, whether Windows reports on it or not. From what I can tell, the AGP card in this system is conflicting and there isn't much I can do about it. I tried reassigning IRQs manually, screwing around with PCI bus steering, and just disabling stuff like serial and parallel ports on my board, and it appears to make no difference. The MIDI features work fine in DOS and Windows, but any type of Sound Blaster 16 emulation only works for around 2 to 5 minutes and then it just hard crashes the system. So after a few days of screwing around, I decided to install the card in my Compaq Presario 4505, or as I like to call it, the Plague PC. See, this PC sat in my garage and it had a tiny little mouse infestation at one point, but I cleaned it up and painted it a few years ago, and it's worked well ever since. At least until today, when the hard drive stopped working right after I installed the drivers for this forsaken card. But anyway, I did a super professional job of installing a CF card reader and reinstalled Windows 98 SE, and all was well. Finally, DOS games and everything seemed to run fine inside of Windows. For whatever reason, the initialization utility throws hands in real DOS mode and doesn't work, but I have enough working on this system and the other system to show you some samples. So first up, we have the VirtualFM implementation, and yikes, this is quite the thing. From what I can tell, it actually has two modes. So if you run games inside of Windows, it loads a very small sample set with basically just a piano from what I can tell. But in real DOS mode, it loads a slightly more complex set of instruments. I mean, both of them sound terrible, but it's almost fun to load up your favorite games and see how it completely ruins them. Duke Nukem 2 and Commander Keen have never sounded better, have they? So moving on to some positives, the Sound Blaster 16 compatibility works fine most of the time and sounds as it should. The real star of the show though, if there even is one, would be the WaveTable mode. The drivers I'm using include a separate 1, 1.5, 2, and 6 megabyte sample set. The largest sample set only works inside of DOS games with general MIDI under Windows, but I find it to be decent in some games. Check out these samples. So the WaveTable mode steals the show, but this card is a hot mess. If it's integrated into your motherboard, I would assume it will work better and you won't have near the problems setting it up that I did, but there still isn't much to like. The FM synthesis is still abysmal, game compatibility is hit or miss, and the entire install experience made me want to pull a Sid from Toy Story and tie the stupid thing to a firework or smash it to pieces. There are far better PCI sound options, and this one's not really worth seeking out. Well, it seems you made it to the end of the video. This is the portion where I beg you to subscribe and like the video or comment below. But also, I'd like to give a big shout out to my members and Patreons. I really appreciate the support you guys give me. But anyway, I hope you enjoyed the video, and stay the heck away from this stupid card.